Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of the Striped Sweater Podcast. I'm one half of your ghosts. I fucked up.
Keep going.
I'm one half of your hosts, old Zach Main and his jalopy, and I'm here with...
I'm a cheater pumpkin eater, Alex Beardsley.
All right, and we're back now. This being the first episode that we're recording after actually releasing our podcast on the internet.
We exist now. We're available on multiple platforms, but not all, because it takes time to be accepted to certain platforms.
And talent that we just don't have right now.
We're getting there. But I really do think we're getting better with each episode, so that's good. Thank you for suffering through the first few, and things are starting to heat up. Today we are talking about SpongeBob SquarePants episode 4A and episode 4B. You want to jump right into it, Zach?
Is there anything else we should say about these beforehand? I mean, it's funny, this Naughty Nautical Neighbors, right, and Boating School are the two episodes that we're covering. Mm-hmm. I remember watching a lot of these a lot of times. Yeah,
these are definitely ones that were reran a lot, because they definitely stick out in my head. Although, it's funny, before reminding myself about Naughty Nautical Neighbors, I had almost completely forgotten about it, but once I remembered it was like, oh yeah, that one. I totally
right,
forgot.
Yeah, you almost forget about it.
Yeah, that one, I mean, it's a good one, but...
Yeah, it is a good one. I like both of these. I was having a hard time picturing the first Boating School episode, but this one I think sets the tone pretty well.
Yeah, I remember the Boating School episode a lot more than Naughty Nautical Neighbors, but... They're both good, and it's funny, going through these episodes. I mean, we're only on the fourth set of episodes here, and this is episode 4 of our beautiful podcast, but really, every episode is good, and it's I don't see that changing,
Yeah,
every episode is good,
I can't picture coming across one that I haven't seen at least once. There's going to be a hidden one, too, where we forget about. It's going to be good.
I know. I mean, I've already been thinking about it. It's oh, yeah, that episode. And, oh, yeah, that episode. Haven't seen these in so many years. It's really been a treat to get to go through them and take a deep dive as we do.
Yeah, I was doing some watch-throughs of the second and third season before we started this, a couple months before. Yeah. And I haven't been watching anything since because I want to be surprised and watch it again.
Right when Steven Hillenburg passed away, I started to watch right from episode 1. I started watching, and I made it about halfway through season 1, so I have kind of relived these first few episodes recently, but for some reason Nautical Neighbors I must have missed. I don't remember. I don't remember watching that recently, but yeah, I mean, it's good stuff, but really, I mean, the show really pops off in season 2, I feel like.
Really?
It just gets super fun and funny and just better as a whole. Even though it's not to say season 1 is bad, it's just, I think it really pops off later on.
No, for sure.
All right, Jack, what do you say? Are you ready?
Aye, aye, Alex.
Bump that shit.
And we're back.
Whoa. Here we are. So, episode 4A is Naughty Nautical Neighbors. This episode aired originally in America on August 7th, 1999. We would be starting second grade in just about a month. Runtime is 10 minutes and 48 seconds. Our storyboard director is Sherm Cohen, and our storyboard artist is Aaron Springer, both boys making their debut on this episode. They also co-wrote the episode along with Mr. Lawrence. And the animation director was Fred Miller. Creative director Derek Dreiman, our boy, who has not missed a single episode yet, I think.
Yeah.
So those are the guys who made this puppy. We start out with a close-up shot of what we will find out in a second is Squidward's souffle, that he has a small model of himself and a guitar and
yeah, there's like a little background of a sunset.
Yeah, he even puts a background. It's like a little souffle diorama, if you will.
Yeah, because it just looks like, I mean, I guess you're supposed to think that it's him on the beach or something to start out.
Yeah, like for a split second, you're like, oh, okay, Squidward's on the beach. I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And then it zooms out and it shows the whole souffle.
Right, and we are inside of Squidward's house, I guess his kitchen, if you will. And he's wearing an apron that says "Kiss the Squid," which you only see for like 1 second, but I think that's funny.
Yeah, because immediately after he makes it, he goes to throw all of his clothes off, right?
Yeah, I think he takes a shower,
yeah.
So I guess
leaves, he like throws the clothes away, takes a shower, and he comes back and he's wearing quite the outfit.
So it's just funny. I just noticed this. We are to believe that Squidward has a bathroom on the top floor as well as the bottom floor.
Oh, because it's across from. Well, I guess we just don't know where his kitchen area is.
I assume that's got to be the bottom floor, but his bedroom is also on the bottom floor. It's just funny because you assume Squidward's house would really just be like 2 rooms because of the way it's shaped, but there's more going on.
What, just 2 on the top?
No, I mean like 1 on the bottom, 1 on the top. You know?
Right, but even the top is 2 separate rooms.
Right, because when you see the top floor, it looks like it's just his like studio, and that's it. But we do find out later in this episode there's a bathroom up there as well.
Yeah. Well, we knew, I think from a previous episode already, right? Where he was in his bathroom.
I don't know, maybe. I don't think so.
Oh, I guess I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's getting ready. Yeah, he dresses himself up all fancy. He puts on like a coat with long tails on the end.
Yeah, and he's got like fancy, like black dress shoes on each of his tentacles.
Yep. He's wearing his dress shoes, and he even puts on a little toupee.
Yeah.
So he's getting ready to engulf this delicious souffle he's made, which is funny because a souffle is made out of egg traditionally. So it's like, I wonder what kind of eggs he used.
Squid egg.
Just something to think about. And he is immediately annoyed by the sound of giggling coming from outside. So camera cuts to back behind the boys' houses, and we see SpongeBob and Patrick sitting in their respective yards. And they both have a little fence around their yard, so to speak. SpongeBob's being made out of flowers. Patrick's is like a rope with pegs in the ground.
Yeah, and he has trash cans outside his rock.
Yep, and you can see SpongeBob's back door of his house and his garage door as well.
And in Squidward's house, so this is how we know where they're at. You do see him on the bottom floor because he opens the window from this dining area. Right. So he does have 2 showers, I guess.
Yeah, we can assume that at this point. Anyway, let's see. So SpongeBob and Patrick are blowing bubbles back and forth to each other, which is funny because it's like there's a lot of bubble blowing going on in these early episodes, and I get it. You're underwater. There's bubbles underwater. I think that's kind of what it is, and it's also a childish, like innocent thing to do. Yeah,
and Patrick has gotten a lot better at blowing bubbles than the last time we saw him, and Squidward as well.
That's true. Everyone has improved their bubble blowing skills. They don't even need to use the technique.
What is the technique for you to explain to the people at home that might not know?
The technique?
Yeah.
That we just learned about 2 episodes ago?
Yeah.
I have to say the whole thing?
I mean, you could do whatever you want.
I don't want to.
Having you explain it to the people at home. Some of these people haven't seen every episode.
Excuse me, I just burped right into the mic.
Some of them might have just picked up on this one. You know, you got to give people a little bit of context.
All right, the technique is...
moving on. All right, so what's next? So then SpongeBob says, "Hi, Patrick, you're my best friend in the whole world." And he does it into the bubble.
Yeah, they're actually able to, like, communicate, like, can and string style, but with bubbles.
Yeah.
They're blowing
Oh, wait,
back
first,
and forth.
actually, he just says, "Hi, Patrick."
Yeah,
and then they giggle.
They're just saying hi to each other and giggling.
And he sends it back.
So Squidward takes notice of this nonsense and decides he's going to do something about it. He conjures up some juice out of the bottom of his souffle, which is like some pink liquid that is just kind of, I don't know. I actually looked up souffles to be like, what is this all about? I don't know. They're not particularly juicy dessert, I don't think.
Yeah, I never really knew what a souffle was before watching this episode.
Right.
So when
It's
I
not
finally saw souffle on menus when I got older, I was not as impressed.
Right. I mean, it's funny, right? I mean, you don't know what a souffle is when you're 7 years old. But you know it's fancy. I think that's really all they were getting across is that Squidward is a fancy dude. It's a delicacy. So he pours some of this juice into a cup, starts mixing it up, and apparently that is good enough to make bubbles that you can blow.
Which he has his own bubble wand too.
Yeah, well, he uses a fork for a bubble wand.
Oh right, yeah, I guess he does.
Yeah, it's not an actual yeah, I know. And that's I guess why these are such weird little bubbles. They're all squiggly and what have you. They're not nice and strong bubbles. They're a little weird.
Yeah, and then the first message he sends...
Although I shouldn't say that they're not strong because, SpongeBob sends out a bubble that says...
Patrick, you're my best friend in the whole neighborhood.
Yeah,
not the whole world or anything, but just...
Or all of Bikini Bottom.
Yeah,
just
whole
neighborhood.
Because, as we found out, he calls other people his best friends, depending on where he is. He's a
true.
two-faced sponge.
That's true. Sandy is his best friend, and so is... who else? Squidward?
Squidward.
Yeah.
I was going to say he's not two-faced. Technically, he is six-faced. Because he's a 3D cube. Yep. So that's
not
that.
a good joke.
What? It's perfect.
So Squid decides to blow a bubble, and it actually intercepts the bubble that SpongeBob blew to Patrick.
Yeah, kicks it out.
And grows a boot and kicks it.
And it's funny that his look... They're not, like, rounded. They're kind of, like, squiggly and, like...
Because he blew them from a fork.
Yeah.
And it's not bubble soap solution.
Yeah, but luckily SpongeBob and Patrick aren't looking at the bubble. They're just listening.
Yeah, right.
So then when Patrick gets his, it says...
Patrick, you are the dumbest idiot it has ever been my misfortune to know.
He's doing it like he's SpongeBob, which is kind of funny because it's a really bad impression. But Patrick... gives him, he sends him a message back and asks if he means it.
Do you really think that's SpongeBob?
Yeah. And he says, of course, Patrick. Anybody with eyes could see that.
So that upsets
And that
Patrick's...
one does not get intercepted.
Yeah,
that goes directly to him.
So Patrick gets upset by that and says, yeah, well, I think you're ugly.
Yeah, well, I think you're ugly. Yellow is ugly.
And
it's the noise that it's actually some kind of language in the rock bottom area. But
that's right.
We'll get to it.
So and then Squidward sends out a bunch of bubbles to further tick them off at each other.
Yeah, and then he goes outside too and starts enjoying
to admire his handiwork.
Yeah, he's got a little visor on.
Yeah.
He's got his regular clothes back on. He's just eating souffle in his backyard.
He's ready to eat his souffle and just watch the fireworks outside.
Yeah,
so to speak.
And it's funny. He has the most plain backyard out of any of them.
Yeah, there's nothing going on back there.
He's kind of like artsy, but even SpongeBob has like a flower garden.
Although we do know that Squidward does like to spend time outside, as we saw in Reef Blower.
Yeah, where he was
eating a leaf outside randomly.
Yeah.
He
sunbathes later, and he is kind of an outside squid.
Yeah, it's funny. He does. He enjoys the outdoors.
But so far, only Patrick has been sunbathing, which is also kind of funny.
I love the line, "You're a turkey. What's that? It's what you are. Well, you're a bigger one.
Yeah.
So they get upset at each other to the point that, you know, they're both done. SpongeBob enters the pineapple through the back door, and Patrick decides to go into his rock. He slams the rock so hard that he squishes himself, and he's all like accordion style.
Yeah,
like,
he's all folded
It even
up.
makes an accordion noise.
Yeah, and the lid is open and everything. 'Cause it won't fit.
It's off its hinge.
Yeah.
Like he like just busted the thing. Squidward sees this and starts to fucking lose it.
Yeah, he's dying. So much so that he drops he lets go of his fork and it flips around in the air and goes right in his throat.
Yep. And it gets caught in his skinny little gullet, and you see his little Adam's apple, and this fork is below it, and it's like just flicking back and forth as he's trying to swallow it. It's such like an uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, as a kid, it'd make me visibly like
ugh.
painful.
Yeah, ow. So Squidward, he is KO'd as we see the his eyeballs, his pupils go back in his head, and KO comes up.
Yeah, it's funny. I think of that as kind of like a Tom and Jerry type.
You
thing.
even hear a bell and a crowd as if it were a boxing match. Patrick, still smushed, notices Squidward choking and collapsing in a heap, and he runs to his aid.
He knows what to do, but he should probably wash his hands first. Oh well.
Yeah. So Patrick attempts CPR on Squidward. He blows so much air into Squidward's system that it completely inflates him like a balloon, and all of his little things,
his little suction cups.
Yeah, his little suction cups all pop out of his tentacles. And
then he lets him deflate.
Yeah. Somehow this crazy method works. And
because he actually spits out the fork and he's saved.
Yep. Squidward is very thankful here. This is probably the most like not an a-hole we've seen Squidward be up to this point. He's like, "Wow, thank you," and Patrick is like, he says something to the effect of like, "Oh, thanks for that, friend." What does he say? He goes, "You're a real lifesaver, friend." And
Patrick says, "Friend," and gets real close.
Yeah,
and then he's like, "Yeah, we're friends."
Yeah.
Just friends.
And meanwhile, we can see SpongeBob peering out his window, and you can actually see him like from outside, like watching this whole thing. And,
not using his giant telescope that he has access to.
Right. He's just, it's funny. It's like a weird, like, creepy ex-girlfriend or something. Like, what's going on over there? Like, trying to hide, but still needing to know what's happening.
And Patrick sees it and says, instantly starts to play up. "All right, well, what do you want to do now, best friend?"
Yeah, right. He's really rubbing it down in SpongeBob's face.
Yeah, and that he literally grabs Squidward and drags him with his arm around him like they're friends, but dragging him.
Yeah, Squidward's feet are not moving. They're just dragging along the ground. And it's funny that Squidward is just totally powerless at this point. Like, he's like, "All right, I guess I'm hanging out with Patrick."
Patrick is pretty big, and he does owe him.
And Squidward, says, "Oh, I'm going to practice my clarinet solo." And Patrick
trying to give him the hint.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, I love music." And then they're in.
Just friends.
So what are we gonna do tonight, best friend?
Well, I was gonna practice my clarinet solo.
Clarinet? I love music.
Who needs them? They're no fun anyway, right, Gary? Gary?
Gary's there, and he knocks on him, and Gary never comes out.
Yeah,
I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, Gary's in his own home.
Gary's
but we
a
find
free
out
spirit.
that shell is actually pretty nice on the inside.
Yeah, right. There's a lot going on in there.
We don't find that out yet.
So back to Squidward's house. He says he's going to be performing a song in E minor, and Patrick goes, "Yay, E minor!"
Big pop for E minor.
Snap. and he's immediately asleep.
Right, yeah, the second he starts playing.
The first note begins, Patrick is snoring his ass off, and it's totally hilarious. And the way that Patrick looks while he's sleeping in this chair or bench or whatever he's sitting in is just so funny. So now Squidward returns the favor to Patrick by dragging him out of the house.
Yeah, but before he's getting dragged out, it actually goes back to SpongeBob in his attic or whatever, and he's like, "Who needs him? I've got all the friends I need right here." And then he draws the little faces on his fingers, which I think this is definitely one of the lines of the episode. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "The gang's all here."
And he's like about to cry.
What am I worried about? I got plenty of friends. I can name 3 right off the bat. The gang's all here. Oh!
Yeah, it's so sad.
There's sad music playing.
Right, but then it cuts to Squidward throwing Patrick out.
Squidward's dragging Patrick out of the house. And in doing so, Patrick's a heavy son of a bitch, so
Squidward is not the strongest squid in the land.
Right. And he throws out his back. And he's all
my back.
He's all contorted, yeah. So SpongeBob, ever the opportunist,
this is his chance. Money in the bank briefcase in hand.
Yeah, hops right out of the window, tears his clothes off like he's Hulk Hogan.
And guess what he has underneath? A Speedo.
A red Speedo, and it's beautiful. It's cut very high too.
Yeah. It's kind of like what the women used to wear, how they used to wear their bottom of their like unitards in the 80s, like from Glow.
Yeah.
It's like cut really high to show a little bit of extra of the hip.
Here's a super obscure reference. It's kind of like Justin Gabriel's trunks.
Yeah.
They were very high cut.
You guys remember him?
That's something that so few people will remember, but go back and look. His trunks are cut higher than traditional trunks.
Yeah, and if you don't know who he is, it was a wrestling thing, so.
Yeah, wrestling reference. You know what? Just look it up anyway, because wrestling's cool. So SpongeBob in his Speedo jumps off a random diving board and starts barreling towards Squidward is like, no.
Trying to inch back into his house.
He doesn't want help from SpongeBob. He is, just trying to go inside and relax or what have you.
And SpongeBob
headbutts Squidward
right in the back.
Right, it's basically like his butt, but it fixes his back. I guess your butt is the bottom of your back after all. Patrick is still asleep outside, and Squidward is like. Squidward makes the mistake of calling SpongeBob a friend this time, and SpongeBob does the same thing of. He's like, no, I.
But it's too late, and SpongeBob drags him into the house in the same fashion.
Yeah, and this is funny because, it almost makes it seem like Squidward is weaker than SpongeBob, which would be, like, impossible.
Yeah,
based on what we see later. SpongeBob is one of the weakest little guys ever.
Squid definitely weighs more than a stick.
Yeah, right, for sure.
They're definitely working together on this one.
Yeah. So, let's see.
Yeah, so then he's like, he fell asleep on you? Well, a real friend would play for you.
Right.
And he grabs an instrument that he calls the bassinet.
Yeah. I was wondering, because this was funny, right? I mean, most of us hear bassinet and we think of like a baby crib type thing. Not exactly a crib, but something for a baby to sleep in, basically. And I wasn't totally sure like what the joke was here. Is it,
but it does sound like an instrument too. It sounds like a cross between a bassoon and a clarinet to me.
But the other thing I was thinking is the instrument he pulls out is like a 3-stringed cello. So it's a stringed instrument. So I was thinking a bass also, is like a stand-up bass.
Yeah.
It's like a big cello, so to speak.
Like a mini version?
So I was thinking a bassinet would either be, a miniature version of that, or it would be the undersea version, because net is, a nautical thing, a net.
Sure.
But
that's also where Ness lives. On net.
Oh, net. You know about what? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? In that game. Onet is the first town you go to. The second town is called Tucson. The third town is called Threed. The fourth town is called Fourside, which is the stage.
Right, I know Fourside from Smash, yeah.
Yep. Little fun fact there.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's why it's Onet, because it's one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I love the song, too.
Squidward is my best friend in the world. Squidward is my best friend in the sea.
And then he can't play it at all either.
Yeah, he can't play the bassinet at all. Although he seems confident, thinking that he can. He starts playing it like it's a guitar.
Yeah.
And because he shoots the bow like it's a bow and arrow.
Right.
And it hits that
a painting.
That painting of a surprised Squidward. And it's what a weird painting that Squidward did of himself, of him freaking out like he's about to be shot at or something
by a string.
But it's a good gag because it hits him, and the idea is it hits Squidward, but then it's oh no, it's just a painting.
Yeah, and he's pulling it out. We get the rest of the song.
Squidward
likes Patrick more than SpongeBob.
So he climbed up the side of Squidward's house and is just hanging on the window.
Yeah, so then he closes the window and he starts slamming it on the ground.
And Patrick is a dirty, stinky, rotten friend stealer.
Which is funny because who did Patrick steal from SpongeBob?
Right, technically
I
neither
guess
of them.
Squidward, but that's kind of a stretch of the imagination there, SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Neither of you are actually friends with Squidward.
Right.
And
technically he called Patrick friend first, so he's kind of the friend stealer.
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of funny. So anyway, he smashes the instrument. Squidward is you got to get out of here. And he kicks SpongeBob out.
And he needs to take a bath.
Ugh, that was disgusting. I feel like I need to scrub myself.
Hey, buddy, I warmed it up for you.
Patrick, get out and put some clothes on.
What's the matter, Squidward, old buddy? So this is what I find, huh? My best friend and my ex-best friend and rubber bath toys.
Yeah, so now SpongeBob's in the window and he feels betrayed.
Yeah, it's funny. I just like the whole idea of they feel like they're cheating on each other. It's a weird...
It's more like a relationship.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah,
and
so
Squidward is this is this is just insane.
Yeah, so he leaves his house as they're arguing. And he's hiding in a trash can.
Yeah, he leaves his own house to hide in a trash can to devise a plan.
Yeah.
So what he comes up with.
Invitations.
Later on, he sends an invitation to Squidward or SpongeBob at his house,
and he picks it up and he just smells it and goes, Squidward, because he just knows by the smell that it's Squidward who sent it.
Totally weird.
And he reads it, and it's a dinner party, and he would love to come.
He's excited.
So he goes to Squidward's house, and Squid greets him and goes,
You look stunning.
Pretty funny.
And then SpongeBob is just saying about how he's oh, I'd much rather hang out with you than, and then it's there's Patrick. And they're both oh my gosh.
What is he doing here? I'm not going to eat with that maniac. He's a maniac.
And then
and he's oh, I thought you were my best friends.
Yeah.
And they each say, I am your best friend.
Right. It's good. It's good work by Squidward.
Yeah, and Squid almost loses it there. You can see he's oh, I hate these guys. He's but gotta stick to the plan.
Yeah. So his plan is to start feeding them soda.
Offer them some soda.
And it's good because SpongeBob gets a glass, and then he takes Patrick's glass, and then again
SpongeBob gets 4 glasses before Patrick.
I think he gets
does.
3, but still, and then
by the time Patrick actually gets one, right, because he's squirting it with his seltzer like machine. He's just filling the cups with soda. When Patrick finally gets some, it's what's poured from SpongeBob's. He goes, "Here you go," and pours it in to get more.
SpongeBob gives him his soda and then gets more, and they're just both fighting for that control of
Squid's attention.
Squidward giving them soda. Yeah, they both want to drink more soda than the other to prove that they're better friends with Squidward.
Yeah, and I always remembered just the sound of Patrick going, "Squidward, hey Squidward, hey Squidward, hey Squidward, hey Squidward."
Yeah, I know that sticks out for sure.
And then until he finally runs out.
Yep. I'm all out of soda. I'm gonna have to go to the store to get more.
It is funny that he leaves and he's like walking like he's all happy, like he's Leonardo DiCaprio or something. But it makes it seem like it's not part of the plan, because he actually does go out and buy things and come back. So his plan was just to get them together. But at this point, they're super bloated and they're big old tubbies.
Right. I wonder what his actual plan was, because there's no way
he could have predicted the soda
to blow up his own house. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're all bloated from all the bubbles from the carbonation. I mean, they just call it soda. When I was younger, I kind of assumed it was like Sprite or something, because I guess that was the clear soda I was used to. But I mean, it could just be carbonated water, because the implication here is that the bubbles are what bloats them up.
Right. It should be Werner's.
Yeah, I guess, but it would be
Shout
brown.
out to Michigan Pops.
Shout out to Detroit City.
Yeah, we call it pop.
Yeah, we call it pop here. I actually do say soda, I guess just because I'm weird. I said pop when I was younger, but at some point I switched.
The cola is something completely different.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, but we do call it like red pop and stuff. I'm not going to be like, oh, Faygo red soda, but it's because its name is red pop, you know? Sure. But yeah, it's funny because Detroit is actually a big soda town. We have Faygo.
Yeah.
Faygo's
Town
from
Club
Detroit.
too, right?
Town Club is from Detroit.
Yeah.
And I think there's one more. Shoot, I can't think of it. I think there is another one that is originated, Werner's. We already said Werner's. Yeah, I think those are like the big ones. But it's funny, like it's a big soda town. Also,
Better Made chips, so good as well.
Yeah, we're
so many good Michigan things.
We're like a junk food and alcohol town, like because we had
craft beers.
Yeah, we have beers, and like Stroh's is originally from Detroit, and it's just kind of funny. Like we're just like a shitty town. We like to get drunk and get fat and stuff.
Yeah, just like our ancestors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, it shows the two big old tubbies just sitting there, and then SpongeBob hiccups. They're trying to look mad at each other. SpongeBob hiccups a bubble, and then it burps when it breaks. And they both think it's funny, so they start laughing, kind of, and feeding off each other. And then they're just laughing and laughing, and there's bubbles pouring everywhere. It's a madness. There's just bubbles all over Squidward's house, and they're floating on them.
Yep, and now they're not bloated because they've released all these bubbles. The house starts to bloat instead, though.
Yeah.
And we see a very familiar-looking animated version of Squidward's house that's slightly off color.
Yeah, and then Squidward's walking up with a bag and his little key ring.
And the house is visibly, like, about to burst, and he doesn't even notice it. And he's going to find his key, and just as he finds the right key, it explodes. And then
then he drops the keys as it happens.
Yeah, he doesn't even unlock the door and then just opens it. It's just kind of like, why did he even have the keys? I guess just for fun. They felt like animating it, I guess.
Yeah, and there's no visible keyhole either, but
right, he couldn't unlock that door if he wanted to. I mean, he had like skeleton key style keys, big honking keys.
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, we made up." And he's like, "Okay, now leave." And they're like, "You don't want us to help you clean?" And he's like, "No." Like, and he's like, "No!" And he freaks out. He's like, Jesus, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and they walk out and they're like, I think he's jealous.
Yeah. How pathetic.
Yeah, right. And Squidward slams the door despite there not being anything around it. Right. Yeah, karma gets him right away when one lone bubble hits the door and pops. And then that sends the door falling over, and it crushes him. And yet again, he's hurt his back.
Yeah, for the second time this episode.
And that's it. Squidward is hurt at the end, as he usually is, just like in jellyfishing and whatnot. And
it's
poor
funny. Miserable squid.
It's funny because he even asks himself, like, what did I learn from this? And it's like, nothing. And you're going to get hurt too.
Yeah.
You learn nothing and you're
that's like his thing.
Yeah. It's like rewatching these episodes as an adult, it's like, man, I just kind of feel bad for him. Like,
yeah.
He's really just wants to mind his own business and do his own thing. And he's just constantly getting harassed and fucking the shit beat out of him because he wants to just be alone.
Yeah.
It's like, just, whatever. I mean, it's all good. He's a miserable son of a bitch.
Thanks to this episode of Squidward getting his back hurt, I think I'm going to give it 7.5 small containers of Tiger Balm.
All right, so I think that does it. That does it for our discussion on Naughty Nautical Neighbors. 4A is in the books. Let's move on to 4B, shall we?
Or not 4B.
Boating School. Runtime 10 minutes 48 seconds. Our storyboard director is Ennio Torson Jr. Storyboard artist is Eric Weiss. This episode was written by those two gentlemen as well, along with Mr. Lawrence, aka Doug Lawrence. Animation director was Tom Yasumi, and creative director, Derek Drymon.
Still managing to not get wet in a show that takes place underwater.
It must have been tough to like hate water so much and
be
involved on a show where
he comes from a long line of people who hate water.
Cool. So, all right, so the episode opens to a shot of Conch Street. We see that it's actually like a pretty high, almost like a helicopter style shot. It's high, it's like above the houses almost. SpongeBob is snoozing in his bed when...
Yeah, he's just... I love the sound of him sleeping. It's funny.
It's cute.
But then, his horn starts going off. His big ol'...
honk. Yeah, he is launched forward by his bed.
Onto a giant calendar.
A giant calendar on the wall, and he lands on Wednesday, March the 3rd. And I checked. This calendar would most likely be from the year 1999, as that's the only year around this time period that had Wednesday, March 3rd in it. So I think it's almost safe to assume that that's probably right around the time that they were creating this episode, because it came out in August of 99, and this boating exam takes place on March 3rd of 1999.
Yeah, and it's funny. I wonder, what do you think he moves? Does he move the calendar slightly every day? Does he move... He can't because of what happens next, right? So what it must be, I think, is that he moves his bed or he rotates it in a way to where it will launch him on the day. But actually, it has to land... No, so it does have to move the calendar because, right? He lands on the 3rd. It's the day of his boating exam. And then he falls right onto the floor, right? And exactly where he falls is a trap door that like gets him ready for the day. So that trap door is just the size of him.
It's very,
so he has to land there every day. So the calendar has to move.
Or he could maybe just punch in something into the mechanism that launches him to change a trajectory. I'm not saying that's what
but
he
did. Has to land in the same spot, is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. You're
Unless
right.
Unless he has a bunch of little trap doors.
But it's funny, I just realized this is very Pee Wee Herman-esque. Because you've seen Pee Wee's Big Adventure, right?
Yes.
At the beginning, he's got all these gizmos and gadgets, Rube Goldberg type shit, where... his breakfast is made for him, and there's a machine that gets him dressed and brushes his teeth and all that shit.
Yeah,
so it's very, and we mentioned that Hillenburg was very inspired by Pee Wee Herman in the creation of SpongeBob.
This is it, Gary. The big boating exam is today. I've never felt so capable!
Yeah.
But then he does get on the unicycle, and he's ready. And he says that he even runs around to Squidward and says, "Squidward, I'm ready."
He does a couple laps around his house, too,
Yeah.
which is funny.
And he's like, "For what? To move?" But no, of course, he's ready for his boating exam.
So, and he is off. He goes past Patrick's house, so it's safe to say that boating school is in the same direction as the Krusty Krab. Which, it's funny, in the last episode, I want to apologize to any, theater nerds or anything. We were using stage left and stage right incorrectly. It's the opposite of what we see. We kept saying stage left to mean our left, which is incorrect. It's the opposite way. Stage right is our left.
True.
Anyway, we said it wrong in the Plankton episode.
In every episode.
We said it wrong. No, the very first time I said it, I made a point to say it right, and then
okay.
Because I used to work in theater when I was in high school, so I do know a little bit about it. But when I was listening to that episode again, I was like, "Oh, this is annoying. We said it wrong every time."
Yeah. So then, right? Yeah. He says, "Are you ready to move?" Whatever, and he goes to the boating school, Mrs. Puff's boating school, and he's like, well, I'm not going to need this anymore, and he just throws his unicycle away.
And he has a very memorable moment of his little I'm Ready song. He goes, I'm ready, Eddie, Eddie, ready.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, I always remember that, and you said the same thing when we were
ready,
watching
Eddie,
this.
Eddie, Eddie, ready. Yeah. Good.
And this is probably the most robust and detailed location that we've been to thus far in the show. There's a lot going on in boating school. And so SpongeBob, he tosses his thing in the dumpster and he's ready. He's going
and he
in.
walks by a guy on the way there.
Yes! Hey, I just got my license.
Hey, I'm getting mine next.
Hey, I doubt it.
Okay, see you on the road.
It's a rather well-known fact that SpongeBob is not a capable driver.
Yep.
Which
Other
is funny
people,
because
though.
he just told us that he was feeling very capable, but we will find out that he is not capable whatsoever.
Well, he is taking his test, and he does talk about it being a semester. So that guy was probably in his class.
Right.
And now they're doing the test.
Right, okay. Yeah, makes sense. So, Mrs. Puff, SpongeBob might think that he's ready, but Mrs. Puff is not ready.
And this is where we first see this beautiful, curvy cutie of a pufferfish.
I like Mrs. Puff a lot. I think she's got some really good jokes and good moments throughout the, some good jokes throughout the series.
Yeah, so he's real confident, and she's like, all right, first you got to take the written exam.
So, oral exam.
Yep, and he just starts, she's like, what's the front of the boat, the rear, and then he's like answering very confidently, and he's like, yep, this, and then he just starts rambling on the answers before she can even speak.
Talking over her.
And then he's like, blah, 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 and of course, the very end, he goes, 1924.
Which is like, what the heck question was that?
We should have looked it up. Maybe that's something about cars.
Yeah,
or boats
I bet
specifically.
it probably is. Dang.
In real life, the Mercedes-Benz came to be in 1924. That's what this SpongeBob Wikipedia type thing says about it.
Oh, really?
It says when a certain boat company was founded, which would have been when Mercedes-Benz came out. That's what this thing's saying.
Okay.
This is giving a possible question and possible answer to all of these. Because what he actually says is the bow, stern, starboard, port, skipper, deck, cabin, gallery, keel, 1924. Those are the answers.
You mean galley? It's not gallery.
I meant to say galley.
I only know that because
that's the kitchen.
Yeah, it means the kitchen, and that's what the menu at the Krusty Krab says, galley grub.
Oh, that's good.
Also in 1924, George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue was performed for the first time. A great tune for those of you who may not be familiar. Featured in Fantasia 2000 in the best cartoon from Fantasia 2000, in my opinion.
So then we get to SpongeBob starting to drive. Mrs. Puff's like in the boat. He's like, "Oh wait, you mean this one? Right now?"
She puts a helmet on.
Yeah, she puts 2 seatbelts on and then a helmet.
And SpongeBob is nervous to get in. He's like, this boat right here.
Yeah.
And then when he freezes up basically.
And when he gets in, she's like, "What's the first thing you do?" 1924.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, come on. And then this is when she actually puts herself in.
she starts the boat for him, and he goes all nuts.
Yeah. It's like, she's like, oh, that's just the boat. You know, like, don't freak out. It's the boat. And she's like, all right, so what's the first thing you do? Start the boat. Starts it for him. And what's the next thing you do? And SpongeBob, just out of instinct, goes, floor it? She's like, yes. Wait, no.
Yeah.
Floor it?
She even doesn't expect SpongeBob to be
Okay,
this
floor it.
dumb to think floor it first thing. So she
Yeah.
says yes. And then she's like, wait a second, no.
Right, and then they pass a bleacher that has half-shell fish, as if people are just watching people take their boating tests.
Right. I mean, right. We talked about this. I assume it's like supposed to be like people that would go watch race car driving or something like that. I don't think you can go watch people taking a boat, driving test in real life.
Especially because we don't take driving tests at like a track.
Right. They have a track there. So it's like, I don't know. And I guess it could be like people's parents or something, theoretically, people who are testing that day.
But they're all like green fish.
They're all the same fish, right? They're very bare bones. But yeah, we see the half shell logo, which has to be a reference to Shell gas, if I had to guess.
Right, but they go right by it, and he hits a lighthouse, and it falls, and Mrs. Puff puffs up.
Oh, SpongeBob, why?
My leg!
The very first my leg. So that lighthouse came down and hit Fred, the fish.
Yeah, and then we go back to SpongeBob. You know, he's mad or he's upset that he didn't pass the test.
We find out it's for the 37th time, and
Gary corrects him, 38th.
And I almost like this. I thought of this while we were watching it, and it's probably not, but I was like, is that a Clerks reference?
No, there's no way.
It's very close, though, because it's 36 and 37 in
Right.
Clerks, and this is 37 and 38. It's almost like, what?
If you
That's
don't know,
weird.
You should know. It's good.
Just go watch Clerks. It's worth the watch. It's in black and white. Don't let that turn you off.
Yeah, but right then, SpongeBob's walkie-talkie starts to go off.
Yep, and it's, what is it, Star Ranger?
Yep. And it's Patrick on the other end, and he's like, come on, you're going to like this. Go to your closet.
Yeah.
And where's SpongeBob's closet? Oh, of course, it is just right down the slide next to his, like, that leads from his room into his library.
To his enormous library with
Yeah.
books that go up, all the way to the, 20-foot ceiling.
Yeah, and then there's just a tiny closet in there where he keeps all of his clothes.
It's
And
kind of
what's-
funny, though, because it lends to the fact that SpongeBob isn't like a total idiot. Like, he's smart. He has all these books, and you got to assume that he's read most of them. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. But then he opens it up, and who's in there?
Patrick Squidward!
And so Patrick obviously snuck into SpongeBob's house, into his closet, put his clothes on, all in the sake of comedy. It is funny and it's a kid's show, but it's like when you think about that, it's like, come on, Patrick, that's weird as shit, dude.
Yeah, but what he does ask actually is, what is pink and square at the same time? SpongeBob just says, don't do that.
Yeah, SpongeBob's not having it.
He's like, I'm not feeling good. I failed my boating test for the 37th time.
And then Gary again corrects him from the
the
other room.
38. Yeah, and then he's like, I got an idea. And he just takes his walkie-talkie and shoves it in SpongeBob's head.
Yeah, just enters SpongeBob.
Yeah. He just shoves it right in there, and the antenna's sticking out, and he's like,
Hello? Hello?
Hey, I can hear you in my head. This is great. While I'm taking the test, you can give me all the answers. Wait a minute, Patrick. Won't I look silly with this antenna coming out of my head?
Zoe's gonna cheat.
It's funny, though, because SpongeBob does not think of this as cheating.
Right, he's just like, oh, it's just help.
All he thinks of it as is, won't I look silly with this thing sticking out of my head?
Yeah. And he's like, and what do they do instead? Oh, we'll just put a cowboy hat over
A
it.
10-gallon hat on
Yeah.
him.
It's beautiful.
So, cut to the next day, I guess, whatever, the next time.
SpongeBob can take it again, I guess.
His 39th, theoretically, this could be a whole semester later, I guess. There's really no telling how.
I don't think it is. But
the implication is that it's the next day, I think.
yeah,
But,
because Mrs. Puff ends up coming out of the ambulance, too.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
But first it cuts to just SpongeBob in a boat, And it's
Yep.
Patrick from SpongeBob's house using his giant telescope to look at him.
And we get probably the line of the show, the funniest, the most memorable.
Pat the sponge. Pat the sponge. Testing. 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 Ah! Do you read?
Sponge to Pat. I read you loud and clear. Over.
Yeah, it's so great. He just starts screaming. Do you read?
And SpongeBob is just sitting there with the shit-eating grin on his face, like, what? Like,
Yeah, he doesn't move at all.
I hear you.
He's
you know?
like, yeah, I'm here. And then he's like, you got your apple?
Yep.
Your lucky undergarments? And
And we
then it
get
cuts
that.
to SpongeBob jumps on the door, I think. And he's got no
he's
clothes on
standing
except
up.
his underwear.
Yeah, he's standing up with his underwear on, and he's like putting the telescope into focus, and it's one of those ultra close-up paintings that we get in SpongeBob, and we see it.
It says
his,
lucky
It's
on
his
the
lucky underwear, and then we get act natural.
Yeah, because he's freaking out. Mrs. Puff's coming.
Yep.
And the act natural. He gets down on the sand and he starts grazing on the grass and moos.
Yep.
That stuck with me for a long time.
That's a good joke, and it's classic.
I always think of that when people say it still.
So Miss
But
Puff,
yeah, then he jumps back in and he's ready.
Miss Puff gets into the boat.
She gets dropped off by an ambulance.
She's already expecting the worst.
Yep, she
and
takes the apple.
She inhales the apple.
Yeah, she just devours it in one bite. And then she's like, what do we do first? And he starts the boat. Well, first he says floor it, right? But
Yeah.
then Patrick's like, no. Start the boat.
Real quick, I think it's worth noting that Patrick is yet again like the smarter of the two in this episode.
Yeah, it is crazy. He knows
It's
how
funny-
to get SpongeBob to do things.
It's funny though, it seems like they both kind of go back and forth. Like they both have their moments of like being smart, and they both have their moments of like total oblivious idiocracy.
really stupid. Yeah. So yeah, he starts the boat, and this time Mrs. Puff freaks out, and he's like, "Whoa, it's just the boat." Calm down.
And then so yeah, he's like floor it, and
And then he goes to floor it, and Patrick stops him, and he says, "Big toe."
Yep.
SpongeBob rips his big toe out of his shoe and presses the gas really slightly.
His big toe is so long.
It has such control.
Yeah. So he starts going, and Mrs. Puff is like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And then it's like, "Uh-oh, the first turn? Please tell me you know what to do at the first turn." And he's like, he doesn't know what to do.
And it's a wall that says wall on it.
Yeah, a brick wall that has the word wall on it.
Yeah, that's what
just in case you couldn't tell that it was a wall.
Yeah, that's Trump's America. It's going to say wall. Yeah, but then he ends up turning.
Yep, Patrick tells him left, right, and he's able to do it. Mrs. Puff can't believe it. SpongeBob is feeling good. He's feeling confident. Patrick has given him all the direction he needs during this.
Yeah, because it's just funny. It's like these, she's making it sound like these are the steps of driving.
Right.
And it's the steps
But
are
clearly,
start, put it in drive, push accelerator with big toe, avoid crashing into the wall, turn right, stop at stop sign, look both ways, continue driving, turn around the flagpole, drive vertically up road, just drive upside down vertically, jump over an anchor, fly through a ring of fire, help an old man cross the street.
Which is Fred, by the way.
Right, he gets out and helps a man
It's
with
Fred
a cane.
walking with a cane.
Fred, the my leg guy.
It's safe to assume that he's walking with a cane because he injured his leg earlier in the episode.
Yeah, and then it says, help woman cross the road, pop a wheelie, drive upside down, get back on the road, and then drive through the finish line.
He's like,
and that's how you.
He's
finish.
even driving with his feet at one point.
Yeah, because he's so comfortable.
And Patrick is getting comfortable too back at SpongeBob's house, and he's helping himself to some food out of the fridge. Mrs. Puff is like, "Splendid. What's your secret? A little radio in your head?"
And they're just laughing.
And everyone
What's
is
your
laughing.
secret? A little radio in your head? Oh, and under that hat is some kind of antenna? And some guy miles away from here is giving you all the answers. Oh, yes, but that would be cheating.
I'm cheating.
Yeah, it cuts to SpongeBob being super like, oh my God, what have I done? And then
Yeah.
on the other end, Patrick is just like really losing his shit, just laughing. He thinks it's hilarious that
he
he's
can't,
cheating.
Right, he doesn't have the same moral compass that SpongeBob
But then
does.
SpongeBob starts telling her about the cheating,
I think
and then
I'm
it's all
cheating.
true. And Patrick freaks out, runs out of his house, and then, out of SpongeBob's house and back to his own house.
Dives into his rock because he's
Yeah.
like afraid the FBI is gonna come get him or
Yeah.
something, I guess.
So then as they're going to the finish line, he's like telling her the whole time he's cheating, and he keeps cutting away from the finish line so he won't go to
Yeah,
it.
he's like almost about to cross it,
Yeah.
and then he
It's like, I'm cheating.
she's like, cheat that way. It's
Cheating.
okay that you're cheating. Cheat that
Yeah.
way. Like she just doesn't
she
want him
doesn't
to
want to
crash.
die.
Yeah.
Cheater, pumpkin eater.
Yep, that's what I am.
So
And
then he crashes again right into the same lighthouse thing.
the same lighthouse that's already been repaired since the day before or whatever. It falls again, and it hits Fred again.
Yeah, my leg yet again.
Oh, SpongeBob, why?
Mrs. Puff, I think I cheated.
It's this time when she says why, there's a bit more oomph behind it. She's like really like, oh man, we were so close. Like,
Yeah, and SpongeBob he's like, get better, Mrs. Puff, and he's like kind of happy. He's like, I'll do it next semester. And then she says a line that you would say to like police to the ambulance because she's all big. She's like, okay, take me away, boys.
yeah, and
They're taking her to jail.
they stuff her into the thing,
The ambulance.
to help deflate her. We presume.
But then once she leaves, SpongeBob's so sad because he's like, oh man, now I don't even have my bike.
Well, first he's like,
Don't worry, Mrs. Puff. I'll try harder next semester. It'll be great. Only now I don't even have my bike.
he's bummed because he doesn't even have his bicycle anymore, which it's a unicycle, but he keeps calling it a bike.
Right, he does.
Which is just kind of weird. But luckily, SpongeBob's trusty pal Gary foresaw this whole thing happening and saved his bike. Squidward's not even in this episode. Gary crawls onto his head and they ride off into the sunset.
The sponge is mobile.
And SpongeBob says, let's go surprise somebody at the hospital, which is just back to like oblivious SpongeBob of like,
Yeah.
she doesn't want to see you, SpongeBob.
Right.
Like,
He's just so trying to make people
but,
happy.
and he's doing the nice thing, which you gotta appreciate. So
I
that
give this episode probably 600 puffs.
yeah, I'll give it that many puffs for sure.
Yeah.
Good episode. Really, I really like this one, Boating School. I like Nautical Neighbors too, but Boating School is definitely is the better episode in my opinion.
Really setting the tone for a lot of episodes.
Yeah, and obviously we get to meet Mrs. Puff. Although this isn't the debut of Fred, it's the debut of Fred hurting his leg. So it's a good episode and it's important. So that does it for our podcast today.
Yeah.
You can find me, Alex Beardsley, on the internet, on Twitter, Instagram, and what have you at Ashton Waganda. That is spelled ASHTONWAGANDHA. And thanks for listening, gang. What about you, Zach?
Zach Main, Manchester _Zach, Mystified, MISTAFYED. That's my Xbox and
Yeah,
Twitch
you
and all
know,
that.
just look for us on the internet if you feel so inclined. And hey, if you're listening to this, just want to let you know we appreciate you and thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Please feel free to subscribe, leave us a review, and do your thing. And you know,
Yeah, at some point we might have guests on too. So
yeah, it is in our plan to get better equipment and all that stuff in the future as we go forward, so we can have guests and we can have some more fun in general. Not that we're not having fun, because this has been a blast so far. We're only 4 episodes in. We got a lot more fun to come, and that's why you gotta subscribe, gang. So anyway, I think that does it for me, Zach.
yeah.
What would you do with a drunken sailor?
Bye bye.
No, okay. Yeah. Goodbye.